In the heart of Blackwood Forest lay the small, isolated village of Elmdale. The villagers seldom ventured into the woods, for they were dark and foreboding, filled with ancient trees and an unnatural stillness. It was said that a terrible curse lingered over the forest, passed down through generations, shrouding it in a sense of dread. Graham, a young and skeptical journalist from the city, arrived in Elmdale to investigate the strange tales that surrounded the forest. Locals spoke of a monstrous beast that lurked within the shadows, a creature that could transform from man to wolf under the light of the full moon. Despite their warnings, Graham was determined to uncover the truth. On the eve of the full moon, Graham ventured into the heart of Blackwood Forest. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie glow on the twisted branches, he found a path that led him deeper into the woods. As he walked, he felt the temperature drop and a strange silence fall around him. Suddenly, he heard a faint rustling in the distance. He strained his ears, trying to pinpoint the source of the sound. It was then that he caught a glimpse of something darting through the trees, a fleeting figure that disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. Graham, driven by curiosity, followed the trail of the mysterious creature. As he walked further into the forest, the trees grew closer together, blocking out the moonlight and plunging him into darkness. He continued onward, guided by the faint rustling of leaves, until he stumbled upon a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a dilapidated cabin, its weathered wood and overgrown vines suggesting it had been abandoned for years. Graham cautiously approached the cabin, noting that the door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open, revealing a musty, dimly lit interior. As he stepped inside, he was struck by an overwhelming sense of unease. The air was thick with tension, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. The cabin was sparsely furnished, with a few broken chairs and a dusty table. Graham's eyes were drawn to the ancient-looking book on the table, its cover bound in worn leather and adorned with strange symbols. He picked up the book and flipped through its pages, finding that it was filled with drawings and writings about the curse of the werewolf. A chill ran down his spine as he read about the creature's insatiable appetite for human flesh and its ability to transform under the full moon's influence. Suddenly, he heard the sound of heavy breathing behind him. He turned to find himself face to face with a man, his eyes wild and his clothes tattered. Graham stumbled backward, his heart racing as the man approached. "I warned you not to come," the man rasped. "Now you've sealed your fate." As the moonlight spilled through the cabin's broken windows, the man's body began to convulse. His bones cracked and contorted as he dropped to the ground, letting out a guttural howl that echoed through the forest. Before Graham's eyes, the man transformed into a monstrous beast, its fur matted with blood and its eyes burning with a primal hunger. Graham tried to flee, but his legs refused to move, paralyzed with fear. The werewolf lunged forward, its jaws snapping inches from his face. He felt its hot breath on his neck and the weight of its massive body as it pinned him to the ground. In a final act of desperation, Graham grabbed a silver dagger that lay on the cabin floor, a relic from a past victim's futile attempt at self-defense. He plunged the blade deep into the werewolf's chest, and it let out an agonizing howl as it stumbled backward. Graham scrambled to his feet, his heart pounding in his ears as he watched the werewolf struggle. Its movements grew sluggish, and the silver dagger seemed to burn the creature from within, causing smoke to rise from its wounds. With one final, tortured growl, the werewolf collapsed onto the ground, its body convulsing before finally lying still. As the full moon began to wane, the lifeless werewolf began to transform back into the man Graham had encountered earlier. The curse had been broken, and the man's tormented soul was finally at peace. Shaken and exhausted, Graham left the cabin and stumbled through the forest, the first rays of dawn breaking through the trees as he made his way back to Elmdale. The villagers stared in disbelief as he recounted his harrowing ordeal, the horrors of the night forever etched into his memory. In the weeks that followed, the curse of Blackwood Forest seemed to lift. The villagers no longer spoke of the werewolf that had haunted their dreams, and the once menacing woods began to lose their oppressive air. But as the full moon rose once again, Graham felt a strange sensation coursing through his veins, an uncontrollable urge pulling him back to the heart of the forest. He stared at the moonlit sky, his eyes burning with a familiar hunger, and felt the weight of the curse that now rested on his own shoulders. The nightmare had only just begun.